Right, hey guys, we are on day 3. Last night I had to put the transmission back in. Use the crankshaft position sensor is kind of a guide on where you want it to be. Once you do that, kind of basically keep your eye on the input shaft. Make sure it's going right in the middle of the of the clutch. Of the in front of the pressure plate. Okay, once you get that in, you're gonna kind of just wobble it and you almost feel like plop in. There's like little guide pins on them, and then they'll slide into place. Now, like I said, the crankshaft position sensor is a good way to get it right, because once you line them up, there's no more real adjusting to do. Back with that back in, remember, I start hand threading all of my transmission bolts into place. Once you got all your transmission bolts threaded into place, I got to go back to my box. If you remember, I use the box to label where each bolt goes. Pretty much for the most part, 17 millimeters go around the top, 14 millimeters go around the bottom. Once we do that, with the transmission hanging down a little bit, we connected this sensor back here in the rear. Remember, it's too hard to get to when this is in its proper location. I put this bracket on, I put this bracket back on, I put that sensor back on up there, and only reason I'm not going to put that stuff back on yet is because we got to torque down the bolts up top. Okay, lastly, one last thing I want to do while I'm here is I'm going to change this transmission mount. Like I say, most inexpensive parts are a good idea to replace them, because you already kind of basically got to take it out to get to it anyway. These smaller, cheaper things are easier to buy than more expensive stuff. So anyway, this is what our new transmission looks like. Our new transmission mount looks like. There's a 14 mil in here and in here, and then there's this 14 mil that goes across. I actually broke this one before we took the transmission down. I'm gonna pull this out so we can get access to these two bolts. It's on the transmission jack and it's bolted up to the engine, so this should not move very much. Now we got the transmission mount back. We got the new transmission mount in. We have the transmission bracket bolted up to the body, and we have our bell housing bolts finger tight. Now we can finally take our transmission jack down, and in doing so, once I get the extra space, we can work on actually torquing down all these bolts. Not gonna hurt anything. These two bottom bolts get torqued to 34 foot-pounds. That's one. That's two. Remember one thing. There's a 17 mil that sits right above the starter. Put the 17 millimeter bolt right above the starter in first. Snug it down, and then we can get the starter in. These get snugged down to 41 foot-pounds. I'm not gonna lie. When I tried snugging this down, I felt it started to feel like it getting loose. That means I need to stop. So, but up here, 41 foot-pounds, and there you go. And then we'll transition on this side. There's a secondary plate. There's a 14 mil that goes through the power steering, and there's a 14 mil right here. These get torqued to 41 foot-pounds. Also, just like that. I'm not going to torque this one. Like I said, anytime I turn a bolt and it feels like it's starting to get loose, I'm not going to keep going. Then I got all these 14 mils down here. We can start torquing up these 17 mils. On the top left, get torqued to 55. That we have everything assembled, we are going to install our slave cylinder. We get our copper washer right here on the inside, like that, and then there's a copper washer that goes on the outside, like that. Then we're gonna hand spin this to get these threads in. Okay, so when we're installing this, you kind of push in the slave cylinder a little bit. It's gonna slide in just like that. Okay, now there's a bracket, it's a heat shield that goes, is it like this? I believe it is like this. Okay. It was like this. Let's get these 12 mils in here started. I'm gonna snug down the banjo bolt once I get these 12 mils in. Okay, all I'm gonna say here is once you get these kind of hand threaded in, you don't need to kill them, just like that. Don't know what the torque spec is, but it's low. Like that feels like plenty. Go too hard, you will strip these. Okay, and then because this is a stainless steel line, you'll need to kind of decide where you want this thing to hang at. We're just going to start slugging her down. You don't gotta kill her again, just make sure it's snug. So from the rear main seal leaking, my crankshaft sensor got pretty nasty. I am hoping that it still work. I just wiped it all down, wiped all the oil off. There is actually a rubber seal in here. There's not a seal that comes with it. Now remember, using the masking tape, I have my blue connector, so this blue sensor right here is going to connect there. All right, so we have our bell housing torqued down, we have our clutch line put back in with our slave cylinder, we have our crankshaft position sensor put back in, we have our new transmission mount in, we have our sensors in the back of the transmission, and we have our bracket back on. We have our brackets all back reinstalled, just put those 10 mils back into place. We have our starter bolted back up, and we have the starter connector back in. Now I am pretty much going to have to put this little bracket back in that holds up, like, I think it's going to go something like this, if I'm not mistaken. We'll put that bracket back in so we can put our oxygen sensors back in. Before we can start putting transmission fluid in here, we need to get our drive shaft back in. But before we get our drive shaft back in, we need to go put our shifter back on inside the car, okay? Because we're gonna have a hard time getting in here with the drive shaft in here. So let's go back in, let's put our shifter back in the car. Remember, we need the spring for the reverse, and our knob in here drops down into place. So with this, push the knob in, and there we go. Now if you look right here, there's a nub to the left near the driver's side that this thing sits in, right? And then you can spin this like so. But we're gonna get this in here. Okay, just to get, once you get these 3 bolts snug down, this nub here is probably for reverse if I'm not mistaken. So when you push it down, remember you go over and you lock it in. That's how you lock in reverse. So with that nub like that, we're gonna leave it just like that. Let's go under the car and let's reinstall the shift linkage. Okay. I like to use a little bit of gear oil, and so that this helps slide the yoke in good. Then we're gonna get our yoke, and come on, baby. There we go. She slides in, and then that little lip, it's gonna snap in place just like that. Now we're gonna snug down these bolts. These get torqued to 54 foot-pounds. The car is in neutral and the parking brake's not up, so this is gonna move for me a little bit. So I used the paper towel with the 17 mil on the other side to hold the drive shaft in place, and that's 54. Before we put on the exhaust, I like to get a wire brush and hit these up so that we get nice clean install, since we're reusing threads here. So back on, I like to get a dab of copper anti-seize, and what I like to do here is just touch it up, because one thing is, if you ever got to remove it again, it'll be easier. Secondly, I have every intention on putting a catback exhaust on here in the future. So one thing I want to do here is use this copper and IC so that when it's time for me to take this back off again in the future, we shouldn't have any problems. Everything, so but I found that 30 foot-pounds felt pretty good. Get them on both sides, and when we're done here, we will check for exhaust leaks. Drive shaft in, we have our exhaust in, we're all bolted up now. I'm gonna reinstall this little bracket here, this bracket that goes here and here, and then I'm gonna put these little brackets and reinstall our sensors. Now we're about to refill the transmission with the oil. So clean off inside of here. I think this might be a magnet. Clean off all the metal shavings. If you have one, you can put new copper wash, or you can put new washers on here. I got a bunch of them. And then I'm gonna give you guys a little lesson here. And when I'm looking at this, I think these might have actually been hex bits, but I already destroyed it, so well. In a nutshell, this car takes 75, try to put it in the shadow, takes 75 W90 GL4 gear oil, okay? Synthetic, so I'm using synthetic right now, 75 W90 API GL4. This is the stuff that you need. You could probably get the red line. I'm gonna tell you something now. You do not put normal or run-of-the-mill 75 W90 in the transmission. This stuff that you'll see at a lot of shops is actually meant for differentials, transfer cases. It says 75 W90, looks all the same, right? It has limited slip additive that's for differentials, and the one thing you'll see here is it says for non-synchronized manual transmissions, okay? GL5 is meant, it has like, it's a different type of oil. You want GL4 oil. You can't use the stuff that you use in differentials in the transmission. You could damage it. I'm going to be using this extractor pump. Basically, I'm going to put one side inside here, the other side inside the fill plug. I'm going to pump it in there until it drains out. It's about 3.2 quarts that goes inside this transmission. We'll just keep pumping until it runs out. Torque it to 25 foot-pounds. That's it. It was way tighter than that before. Alright, with our fill plug open, we're going to start filling this with transmission fluid. With gear oil. We have our nice steady stream of oil coming out. That means that we're full. I think we're just about done here. All our electrical connectors are back in, front and back of the transmission, drive shaft, exhaust. Got that plate in the front, starters back on, crankshaft position sensors in. We have our transmission filled with gear oil. Now it is time for me to put the shift knob back on and then bleed the slave cylinder, and we're done here. Whew, I'm excited, y'all. All right, let's get in there. Now, make sure that these are nice and snug. You don't gotta kill them. It's good there, and that's good there. And then to put it in reverse, remember, push it down, bring it over. That's reverse, and that's how it holds it in reverse. So that nub sticks over here. Now you got all four corners of your 10 mils pushed in. You can see here, we got all our gears back. Everything feels good. I'll put this back in. Hold on. We gotta put these two clips back and then we'll snap it in. With the two connectors back in, pop it in, and then it'll kind of just, there we go, feels right. Everything feels good here. Then we're gonna get our shift knob and snug it back down. Don't forget your cushion. I forgot to put the cushion back. Now we'll put it back in and put the shift knob back on. Last thing to do is bleed our slave cylinder. I'm gonna get this in here, clean out any debris. We have our synthetic, we have Lucas .3 brake fluid. You can put .4 if you want, but .3 is good. I got it anyway. Okay. That being full, now we need to work on bleeding it. Put this in here so we don't introduce any air into the system. Okay, so before we start bleeding the clutch, what you're gonna notice is the clutch is gonna go to the floor. You're gonna have to bring it back up. You're gonna have to keep doing that as we're bleeding it to get the brake fluid out. Now pull it back up. Oh. Good job, kid. All right. Now every time I tell you to push it in, I'm gonna tell you when to pull it back. All right. All right. Now we're gonna get into the slave cylinder and get this thing ready to bleed. So just like bleeding a brake, we have our slave cylinder bleeder valve right here. I just cracked it open. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pump the pedal a couple times, and then with the pedal down, I'm gonna crack it, and we should see some bubbles and air come out. So I'm gonna snug it down right now. All right, you ready? Start pumping it. Go ahead, pump it. And as you can see, that brake fluid is coming out, you guys. And that air is coming. Hold on, son. Hold up, wait. All right, now you ready?
Yep.
Pump it.
Okay.
Bring it back up. Do it 3 times. Do it. Bring it back up.
I did 3.
All right, now hold it down.
Oh, it's still down.
Okay, keep the pedal down. Hold on. And all that air is coming out, just like brake fluid. All right, son, bring the pedal up.
Okay.
All right, now we gotta check our level, and then eventually when our pedal starts coming back, we know that we no longer have air in the system. I'll get back to you guys when we're finally done. This, do not go in your car and just start thrashing it. Think of it like brake pads and rotors. You need to break in your clutch and your flywheel together so that you have a nice long service life with your clutch kit. If you just go in there and just start, just banging on gears and just, pushing this thing to its limit, you could warp the flywheel, and you will pretty much have wasted your money. You know what I mean? You don't ever want to break in a clutch kit improperly. It's a lot of money. You don't want to waste it. You know what I mean? Be relatively easy on it for at least 100 miles. You know what I mean? So that everything breaks in good, and then start doing your thing. So I really enjoyed this clutch kit mod, and thanks for watching, you guys. Till next time, out.